We've touched on him because you can't avoid him, Brad, but Chris Froome. Let's start with the biggest news, possibly over lockdown. What do you make of his transfer to Israel Startup Nation, or his upcoming
I
transfer,
knew he was thinking of changing teams.
Yeah, I think we all did. It was sort of the worst kept secret in cycling, wasn't it?
I think he needed to, really. I just think he's got a lot more in the tank, really, if he wants to, more than anything.
So he's 35 now.
But I just don't put anything past him, really. I think he could win another Tour for me.
Once that 5-time club.
I still think, well, I don't know if he does want it. I mean, you might say that, but I don't know if he, willing. But by changing teams, I think that's the biggest statement he's making, that he does, really. And I think he will, on his day, he still could surpass certainly Bernal and maybe Geraint. But he's got a 5th Tour win in him. And I just think that they were obviously thinking whether he was ever going to get that opportunity again at Ineos. And by changing teams, he's probably given himself the best opportunity to win that 5th Tour. So I think it's a good thing. I know that they don't make decisions lightly, Chris and his team, so he would have put a lot of thought into it. And it would have been a brave move as well, because there's no certainty with it. But I think I see it as such a positive thing, and that it means that he's really willing to go for that 5th Tour win.
What about from Dave Brailsford's point of view?
In what sense? In
the sense of, so he's got a team full of GC riders, and particularly, so we're looking at the Tour, Bernal, Thomas and Froome, three leaders don't go into to 2, how we know they like to do it.
Carapaz, what's his plans? Are they doing the Giro? Is he going for
this? I'd imagine he's defending his Giro title.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because last year Geraint was the defending champion and Bernal was allowed to shine. I think had we had the stage 2 team last year completed, I think Bernal would have cracked and Geraint would have won the Tour that day. Now, you'd have to say that because Bernal was allowed to win the Tour last year with Geraint as defending champion, when he was good enough to win the Tour last year, that would the same would apply to Bernal this year, that he doesn't get the automatic right to defend the race. So Geraint is open to win the race this year, and I actually think Geraint will win the Tour this year. No question about it. I don't think there's an argument within that team for me.
And how does Froome fit into that Tour team?
I would guess that Chris Froome won't be at the level this year that we're good enough to win the Tour. I think it might take another year, particularly with the lack of racing. But who knows with Chris? I won't put anything past him. But he does fit into the team for me.
Yeah,
I'd take him purely on what he's done for that team. I think he's been the face of that team for a number of years now. He's won 4 Tour de France's. I don't think you not take Chris Froome to that race. And if that's set out before, rather than going into it and kind of, who could win this race, I think Chris would be the first to go in there and say, well, I'm just going to help these guys, really. I would not take Chris Froome to the Tour de France. For me, it's a 2-prong race between Geraint and Bernal. But I would even go so far as to say that, we're riding for Geraint Thomas at this race. Bernal had his chance last year and he took it. But I don't think it's a given that Bernal gets to defend his title, really, within that team. I think Geraint Thomas played second fiddle last year to Bernal to help him win that Tour. And you could say Bernal got a bit lucky with the weather last year and the stage that was cut towards the end of the race. But yeah, I think it's a Geraint Thomas race, but I would take Chris Froome any day of the week. He'd be first on the team sheet. You
agree with that, Dan?
I can't wait to see whether he's taken to the Tour or not. I mean, what struck me with the whole
Would
transfer,
you take him, though, Dan?
It's very hard to put yourself in that position because I'd take him because I'm watching it on TV and I want there to be an inter-team scuff, basically, just for the entertainment of it. But I mean, what struck me was how, obviously, we kind of know this anyway, that Brailsford can take any emotion away from decisions and stuff. And, there's this guy that's been their most successful rider by far since its inception in 2010 and won 4 tours, all the other races that he's won. But, when Chris said, I want to be the sole leader at the Tour de France, he's like, well, no, we've got 2 other guys that we need to have as leaders as well. I can't guarantee you that leadership position. And if you want to move on, move on.
Yeah. Mission clarity, I think, is the buzz phrase that Brailsford would use. Brad, did you get that feeling so you were 32 when you won the Tour, right?
Yeah.
Do you get that feeling when you were coming to that point that, okay, if I don't do this now in the next year or so, in the next couple of years, it's never going to happen for me?
No, I didn't. I I just worked on an 18-month program from 11 to 12. I didn't know what was happening after the 1st of August 2012.
Yeah.
There was no, maybe this has got to be the year. It was just, that was it. We just worked one race at a time. I didn't.
And even before that with Garmin.
Well, with Garmin, I didn't even think I'd finish the tour, let alone win the bloody thing. I mean, I was just, it wasn't like that. It just all happened so quick. I went from riding the Gruppetto with Dan one year to, suddenly finish.
I was going to say, I mean, I knew my chance was over.
So suddenly finishing fourth.
I was coming to that.
I wasn't.
No, I gave up the track and progressed and finished fourth of the tour. I mean, it was like, it just happened overnight, and I just never really thought like that. If anything, I thought, I'm just going to do this one and I don't care if I never ride another tour again. I think that was what More 12 was like, really. I hope I win it this year because I can't imagine going through this again, being months at a time up a mountain and missing the kids and everything. And so
I think that was the difference between you and Chris, wasn't it? It felt like there was like the sacrifice level of training and preparation for the tour. I think has been more for you than for. I think he makes the same sacrifices, but there's so much a part of his normal life that he's just very happy to continue making those sacrifices year in, year out, which is what makes him almost completely different to any other rider out there at the moment.
Yeah, and he's got young kids as well. I mean, I had young kids, but, they live in Monaco and, it's my kids have started normal school by then. So I think by the time Chris's kids are old enough to go to school, they would have retired and settled wherever they are. Because I didn't want my career being put over the kids growing as socially and as adults, really, and I never saw the sacrifice bigger than the family. So it was a case for me of like 2011. If I think I might have won the tour in 2011 if I hadn't crashed out, but I didn't. So it was all about the following year. It's like, let's give it another shot. And by doing that, I knew I could probably win the race, and I wouldn't have to worry about any other race after that. It wasn't like, right, I've got 5 years, and let's hope I can win the tour in 5 years. It was just, let's get this thing done, and you never have to bloody go back to it ever again. That was more the attitude.
And how was your head after the tour and the Olympics? Because the next year you went to go and do the Giro, but it didn't ever.
Yeah, but that was just like spare of the moment. Like December, it was like, well, what are we going to do? Well, should I do the Giro? Yeah, do the Giro. It wasn't like, right, I want to win the Giro now. I said that publicly, but it was like, right, am I going to get through the next 2 years and without poking my nose in the wind, really? That was more of it, because I knew Chris was going to be the leader of the tour on that. I actually wanted to go and help him try and win the tour, but ideally, if I don't go to a tour again, I won't be that bothered. So I tried to try and win the World Time Trial title, because I can train living in England and do that without going to I never went to altitude again after 2012. Because
never?
No, I didn't want to spend 3 weeks at the top of the mountain. I want to be at home as much as possible. I could train for time trials at home. Win a world title, let's do the hour record, let's try and win Tour of California, let's try and win all these Tour of Britain, these other little races. I never went to another Grand Tour again after that Giro.
Yeah, I think that's.
And I didn't even finish that Giro. I went home.
No, I remember. I think that was the biggest change since I've been racing. Is that 10 years ago now, but back then you used to do sort of 2 or 3 weeks training camp at the start of the year, and that was kind of it, really. There weren't really mid-season training camps back then. So again, it was what makes it all the more remarkable that Froome's still as motivated as he is. Really, you're away so much more now because it's not just the racing; it's all the training camps at altitude in between. I think Matt Hayman's talked about that as well, about the difference between and why he ended up finishing his career in the end.
Well, we'll see how he goes in the Route d'Occitanie this week, alongside Amador, Bernal, Castro-Hievo, Theo Geoghegan-Hart, Sivakov, Van Baal. So the only man really missing from the big guns is Thomas.
Yeah, and Tour de Land. How do you think Froome's going to go, Graham, at the Route d'Occitanie?
I would be surprised if he hit the same form as Bernal. To my mind, Bernal has killed it over lockdown, but we will see.
Why did you say that?
So I think he's got the benefit of altitude, first of all, riding in Colombia. I think he's just as driven as Froome, and he's got, for me, the massive advantage of not coming back from what should have been, or what would have been for most people, a career-ending injury.
What about Geraint, though? What do you think?
Just as good a chance as Bernal, if the road suits him.
I thought Thomas's ride last year was almost more impressive than when he won the Tour, because his preparation last year was horrific.
It was amazing,
He hardly finished a race. He had a couple of injuries and a couple of illnesses.
I think he'll be better this year.
Yeah.
But it always seems to be with G, the luck is not on his side.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, boys.